Welcome everybody who's joining me. It's Hogvillenet YouTube Live. Another post game, and look, we're going to live to have some more post games to this tournament because for the third consecutive season, the Arkansas Razorbacks have knocked off a number one seed of the NCAA tournament. They're one of only four teams to have ever done that in back-to-back seasons in the NCAA tournament, and it's Kansas, the number one seed, the defending national champion, the fourth-ranked Jayhawks, a team that won the Big 12 regular season outright. But the Razorbacks knocked the champ off. This is a team that had won seven consecutive NCAA tournament games going back to last season. Arkansas, when we look at this Razorback team, the blueprint was established against Illinois, but we rarely see Arkansas have back-to-back games where it was really good in some things, and we're going to talk about those. But not only that, when they've played this level of competition, Alabama twice, the overall number one seed, Baylor on the road, they played a really tough away from home schedule that got them prepared. But through 33 games, Arkansas just couldn't seem to get over the hump against teams that are really good. That happened today. So many times Arkansas let go of double-digit leads and lost games. And this one, they had a mountain to climb. They were down 12. And Arkansas just willed. We're going to go through all of it. There's probably going to be some hyperbole here coming from me. I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. This is one of the greatest wins in program history. When you look at Eric Musselman now, and again, I'm going to go back to some of the things I wrote about coming into this tournament about kind of five things that stood out to me. The number one thing was Devo Davis. This guy has now, if he didn't think he already had, this is one of the top 10 players in program history when you look at postseason. Maybe closer to top five when you look at postseason. When you look at arc of career, he's twice all league. Preseason, second team coming into his sophomore season, postseason, all defensive team. We know how important and instrumental he's been in postseasons. And he put Arkansas on his back today, as did Ricky Council. And this game so much mirrored in a lot of ways the Illinois game. But Devo Davis with 25 points, 19 in the second half before he fouled out with about 2 minutes left. And here's a guy that said, we're not going to take any more threes. I'm getting downhill. Tough finishes getting to the basket. He went 3 of 4 for his last 3 points, or 3 of his points late at the free throw line. And both of those came after he was just battling and grinding for offensive rebounds. This guy's been a strong rebounder all year. 25 points, 8 rebounds today. And those last 2 were huge. 3 of 4 free throws. He was 6 of 7 overall at the line today. Outstanding, 9 of 15. And how about Ricky Council? This guy scores 11 of Arkansas's final 13 points. Kamani Johnson with a huge stick back to break a tie game. Wilson for Kansas goes to the line, ties it up with 2 made free throws, 67 all. And then Arkansas, instead of playing freeze ball and circling around on the perimeter, Ricky Council gets in attack mode immediately going the other way with just over 30 seconds left. He gets fouled with under 30 going to the basket. And this was it ended up being a 3-point possession for the Razorbacks. Council makes the first free throw, misses the second, but just scraps. You talk about scrapping on the glass. Ricky Council gets the offensive rebound, gets fouled again with 20 seconds to play. And now all of a sudden you're tied up with about 23 seconds left. Now you hit 2 free throws and you're up 3 with 20 seconds left. And that changed the complexion. Timeout, Kansas. And then it became a foul game. Arkansas fouls, doesn't give up a 3-point play. Fouls Wilson again, 2 of 2. Now it's a 1-point game, 70-69. Arkansas, and that foul occurred, by the way, with 8 seconds left. Kansas did not do a good job of getting into its offense. And Arkansas's defense could be part of credit for that. 12 seconds were burned there. Those free throws by Wilson were made with 8 seconds left. Arkansas inbounds to Council, your best free throw shooter. Foul. Stop the clock at 7.1 seconds. He goes and knocks down 2. Anthony Black fouls without Kansas ever getting a chance to shoot a 3 to tie it with about 3 seconds left. And for some reason, Wilson goes to the line, makes the first one to get it to a 2-point game. You've only got 3 seconds left. You do not want to play the clock game and try to foul after you make a free throw because you don't have enough time to convert it and get it to the other end. But he made both free throws. Arkansas won. They inbound the ball, make one pass. They couldn't even foul to stop the clock. Game over. Arkansas 72-71. Devo Davis is a Razorback legend at this point. I mean, that's it. No matter what he does from here on out, this is one of the greatest Razorbacks ever, because if the postseason matters more than anything, this guy has been nails. This is the third consecutive season Arkansas is moving on to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Back-to-back Sweet 16s. We know they're coming off back-to-back Elite Eights. Everything's on the table now. I said this the last time, not in the pregame. We had a pregame today, but in the postgame following the win over Illinois. If Arkansas finds a way to win this, you throw everything that happened up to this point out the window. It's gone. Means nothing anymore. Arkansas can now do as much damage as anybody. That two number ones are gone. Houston's on the ropes with Auburn, about 16 minutes left. Auburn was up 2. So, I mean, it's a close game, but, I mean, that's a team that's dealing with some injuries. In Alabama, I've said this. I said it earlier today. I said it in the last one. I've said it all year. There are no great teams in this tournament. And to be honest, I thought Kansas, when I really looked at the matchups, I thought there were things that Kansas does well that Arkansas tends to have issues with, and that might be an undoing. But if Arkansas could just stay in it and find a way to be competitive, that in the late stages they had a chance if they could repeat some of the stuff they did from the last game. Well, let's look at that. Second game in a row, Arkansas wins the turnover battle. And this goes to Arkansas. When you look at turnovers, only +1, but they were +4 in points off turnovers. This Kansas team gets a lot of its offense off really sound defense, getting steals, forcing turnovers, and getting in transition. We saw that early in the game. And the Jayhawks held a 6-0 advantage at halftime in transition. They led by 8 at the break. But guess what? Like I said, Arkansas is +1 in turnovers. They had one fewer, 12-11, and 13-9, +4 in points off turnovers. So that was the turnover part. But in fast break, which is Arkansas, converting some of the turnovers it picked up in fast break, Arkansas ends up losing that only 6-4. So -2 there after being down 6-0 in fast break points at halftime. Kansas didn't score in transition again. Arkansas made adjustments. Eric Musselman, is arguably right now, you have to say, when you look at the last 3 NCAA tournaments, I know people are wondering, he recruited this roster. There wasn't 3-point shooting, a lot of issues in certain areas for Arkansas, but they also had injuries. Look at the injury issues Arkansas was dealing with today. Anthony Black was clearly not himself. He's been dealing with a foot injury. He played through it, but he wasn't the same guy out there for Arkansas. He gutted it out. Nick Smith Jr. was a negative factor today. He had another poor game. But in the SEC tournament, he was dealing with the flu and was getting IV treatments between games. In this one, they said he didn't practice yesterday. More issues there. Who would have thought Arkansas's 2 projected lottery picks were going to combine for 4 points? Those were all scored by AB, by the way. And not be as big a factor as an Arkansas was going to beat a 1 seed. This is why I said all year long, I said it, regardless of what Arkansas's issues were, what the issues were for Arkansas through this season, when you looked at it on paper, the individual talents there, it just hadn't meshed. It hadn't fully come together. Too many self-inflicted wounds. Too much one-dimensionality when guys like Brazile was lost for the year and Nick missed 2 months and 13 games. There was too much of that. But at the end of the day, you had 3 guys make the all league teams on your team, and you finished at 10th place in the SEC and 8-10, so you're below 500, and you still had 3 guys. We knew the individual pieces were there. With Brazile, this is likely a 1-seeded team coming into this tournament this year and Nick Smith healthy the whole way. These guys playing all together throughout. That didn't happen. With Nick Smith Jr. back, I felt like this was a team that could still make a run, but they weren't playing well at the end of the year. Defensively, they took a step back. I thought today they got better in the second half. We've seen games where they're not as good in the second half after being lights out in the first half. It was the reverse today. Arkansas started to figure things out. I'm going to go through some of these stats. I went through the turnovers. Really, here are the big ones. Arkansas today in the rebounding department won again, 36-29. They beat up on Illinois on the boards. They did the same thing here. They were dominant on the offensive glass against Illinois. The Illini only had 3 offensive rebounds. In this one, 15-7, Arkansas +8, more than doubles up Kansas on the glass. This is a Kansas team that's very dangerous, sneaking in to get putbacks. 15-7 there. And then the second chance points, this is its biggest stat as anything I've seen from this game, other than free throws. We're going to talk about that next. 15-2 for Arkansas, +13 in second chance points. How big was that? How many did we see off those offensive rebounds? Free throws off offensive rebounds count toward that number. And we saw Arkansas do that. We saw Arkansas fall behind by 12 points in this game, and then they battled back. An 11-0 run gave Arkansas its first lead with about just under 9 minutes left, 52-51. That 11-0 run was capped by a three-pointer by Jordan Walsh. He and Kamani Johnson were nails today. If Ricky Council and Devo Davis have made their cases for an all-region team, and we'll see where this goes from here, they definitely should be on it at this point. But guys like Jordan Walsh with another game, this is 2 games in a row where his defense was clutch. There were moments where he looked like the 5-star that he came in as. He gave Arkansas 10 points, 3 rebounds, a couple of steals. But what I really liked about him, he knocked down that 3. Here was one of Arkansas's issues. In the first half, they especially early in the game, they just started putting up early shot clock threes. They weren't challenging Kansas. Arkansas was 1 of 11 from 3 at halftime. That's not. No, sorry, excuse me. Arkansas was 1 of 9 at halftime from 3. Arkansas finishes 3 of 15, so only 6 in the second half. But it's even better than that. At one point, there was a little over 12 minutes ago. I think 12 minutes and 14 seconds is what I wrote down. At that point, Arkansas was 2 of 13 from 3. That means in the last 12 minutes, Arkansas settled for 2 more threes, and Jordan Walsh knocked down the only one he took, to give Arkansas the lead for the first time at 52-51. And then it was a horse race after that, back and forth. And I thought Arkansas was the tougher team. I thought Arkansas was the smarter team in the way that it attacked. And I thought Arkansas had the bigger will to win. When I look at Devo, Council, Walsh, Kamani, 4 points and 10 rebounds. How about his putback to give Arkansas a 2-point lead, 67-65 down the stretch there? Yes, Wilson would hit 2 free throws shortly after that. We're under a minute now, though, when all this happened. We know Kamani had that stick back against San Diego State back in Maui to get that game to overtime, and Arkansas won that. By the way, San Diego State's in the Sweet 16. All of a sudden, Tennessee really 13-point win over Duke to get to the Sweet 16. Now the SEC, after Arkansas won 8-2 in this NCAA tournament with 2 Sweet 16 entries. Maybe some of you guys can keep me informed and updated on what Auburn and then the 1 seed Houston are doing. But at this point, if Auburn gets an upset there, the SEC looks a lot better than I thought maybe that league was when I really looked at the Big 12 SEC Challenge, the last one of those results. Some of the stuff, a team like Texas A&M dominating in league play after not being very good in non-conference, and then that team bows out in its first round game as the higher seed. So this time of year, things are very interesting, but one thing we know is the Arkansas Razorbacks are nails under Eric Musselman. I just talked about individual performances, and I talked about some of this team stuff, but let's get to those free throws. Once again, Arkansas, the Razorback, was it an anomaly to shoot 75+% against Illinois? Apparently not. Because the Razorbacks today, this ends up being 21 of 26, 81%, 80.8, 81%. We're going to round it up. 21 of 26 at the foul line. Just like in the last game, they got even better as the game went on. Second half, 15 of 18, 83.3. When you look in the final 3 minutes, Arkansas was 7 of 8 at the free throw line. So that's even better. That raises the percentage up even more. So Arkansas, as the game wore on, got better at the foul line. Kansas was a 71.7%, right at 72% free throw shooting team. Guess what? Today, the Jayhawks hit their number. 18 of 25, 72%. But guess what? Arkansas shot 1 more free throw, made 3 more, and when you win by a point, how many times have we talked about you could throw all the other stuff out, paint points, this and that. At the end of the day, Arkansas lost a lot of games simply, you could say, and argue they didn't make free throws. Arkansas made free throws. I just mentioned the Hogs got better in the second half. Kansas in the second half, 12 of 17, just under 71%. So they actually got a little worse, and they missed some in that back and forth stretch late in the game where it kind of, they couldn't expand on a lead. I think after Arkansas took that 52-51 lead, at some point Kansas went up 58-55, but it was only still a 1-possession game, and they missed a couple of free throws in that stretch there, and then after that too. So Arkansas was the better team at the free throw line. Arkansas just beat a number 1 seed. Think about that. Again, I say this is a field not loaded with great teams. Doesn't matter. I mean, this team won its conference, the best conference in college basketball, I think. When I look at the Big 12, And this is a team that's coming off a national championship last year, had won 7 NCAA tournament games in a row. And they had players who've been through that. I mean, Jalen Wilson's a first-team All-American. And now we look at back-to-back games, the two team studs, Shannon for Illinois and Wilson for Kansas, both of them had 20-point games, but never at any point during either game did I feel like either one of those guys were the best players on the floor. It was Devo Davis and Ricky Council in both games. Arkansas's had the best players in this tournament so far. And you look at Anthony Black and struggling in this one. He was productive in the previous game. Nick Smith Jr., who's not had a good NCAA tournament, you can really see the effects of this guy playing in just his 11th game. The intensity, the games are so the level play right now is such a standard right now that he was still trying to round into mid-season form. He still, I guess, got some physical issues dogging him, but I thought it was wise of Eric Musselman to basically, in the second half, make sure that guys like Devo and Ricky, who are plugged in and able to get downhill and battle for physical baskets and finish through physicality, I thought it was key that Arkansas make sure those guys were controlling the ball, especially with AB not being himself. He couldn't be on the ball as much or trying to get downhill as much. It just wasn't there for him today either. So I thought it was smart, and I thought that was wise for Nick to sit and watch. Jordan Walsh, get him on the floor as much as you could. He ends up fouling out late. But this guy was incredible. Kamani Johnson with those 10 rebounds and that putback. You understand why Eric Musselman has inserted him, by the way, in the starting lineup in these two games. You get two players you've had in back-to-back Elite Eight runs on the court together to start games. Set a tone. Get out there and be tough. You called it. I don't know who called it. Houston 56-51, 8 minutes left. Okay, thank you for the update. That's another number one seed that's battling here. And Auburn's, when I really looked at this SEC this season, I thought Auburn was maybe a little overrated. Tennessee seems to struggle no matter how good the personnel is. Late in the season in NCAA tournaments, that team's for real. And we knew they should be, but a lot of times, for whatever reason, some of these programs have teams that don't do well in postseason. Tennessee's doing well, the Sweet 16. And so A&M, I don't know what it is about them when they get in SEC play. I'm just not crazy about that. I'm not, Buzz Williams, by the way, in 4 seasons at Texas A&M, won NCAA tournament, and they're 0-1. The last 3 Arkansas Razorback coaches that have led this program in their first 4 seasons are better than that. The last 3, you know who they are. Eric Musselman, we'll go in reverse order. Eric Musselman, Mike Anderson, and John Pelfrey. And I know I'm not trying to stir anything up. There's a lot of buzz people back in the day for Arkansas, and I saw some of that rattling around for A&M this year. Kudos to the Aggies for finishing second in the league and getting to the league tournament finals and having a heck of a turnaround. But that, we're going to put that one to bed now. Anybody else buzzing for Buzz, let's put that away for a while. And I don't think there's been anybody that suggested that he's, in the same plane as Eric Musselman as a coach, but there might have been some that were disappointed in Arkansas's regular season that might have said something like that. So look, here's the thing with this Arkansas Razorback team now. Everything's in front of this team. What does that mean? It just means you've got time for AB to rest up. Nick Smith Jr. is not done. The best thing that can happen there is for him to really watch tape. Hopefully he's healthy enough because he didn't practice yesterday, but he did play. For those guys, if they can recover and get back in the fold. But Ricky Council, the one thing I said when I put that article out, and I've been talking about on these pre and post games, he needed to get away from the SEC. And this is a guy that once again today did not shoot well from the field. Ricky didn't shoot well from the field. He finishes 5 of 18, 1 of 6 from 3. But guess what? Not only was he knocking down free throws late, but he had a turnaround jumper late in that game where Arkansas needed it. They needed that bucket. That was nice because he's really inconsistent in the mid-range as well. He's not shot well in this tournament, but guess what? 11 of 12 against Illinois at the foul line today, 10 of 11. What does that tell you? He's attacking. And the SEC, he was up and down with that, and teams kind of ate his lunch sometimes. I just felt like getting away and getting out of that league. Teams that are used to him, it's just harder when you're not used to a team. It sometimes can be harder. He's taking advantage of that, and you want to see it. But I think the real turnaround for Ricky, obviously, because we know he can score. 10 rebounds in the last game. Today he had 6. Excuse me. He had 6 rebounds and 4 assists. So 16, he's averaging 8 rebounds in this tournament. How many games did we see Ricky have 1 or 2 rebounds and not be a factor on the boards? He's 6'6" and a monster athlete and strong. He's built right. This dude's battling. I thought his defense has been matador all year. Some good games, but mostly not. This guy's getting blocked. He's had a block shot in the last 2 games. We know he can get some steals, but and then I thought there were times today where he did a good job. Early in the game, Arkansas struggled with a few things. Taking too many quick threes. They had a couple of turnovers really early in the game. I think the first two possessions or 2 of the first 3 possessions. But the other thing was on defense, Arkansas would play well initially, but then they would leave the guy that planted their foot after a dribble drive. They'd just vacate, and then they had a wide open shot. We saw a little bit in this game, but I thought Arkansas really tightened that up and did a lot better in a lot of ways. And I thought, I'm going to be honest, the officials, when you look at the foul shooting, that's almost even. Arkansas +1 when talking about attempts. But I really felt like there was some bailout whistles that were advantage Kansas in this game. I did. But it wasn't so lopsided on the whistles that it kept Arkansas from getting to that winner's circle. And you love to see that because you see that often, especially with 1 seeds in the tournament. For whatever reason, especially late in games, there were 2 back-to-back possessions where Adams, who was carrying 4 fouls, one of them I thought he got a bailout whistle, that sent Mackay out of the game. And then there was another one where I thought, I really thought that he traveled before the contact with Kamani. They gave him Kamani that got the foul. He gets more free throws. So he ended up getting 4 free throws. He made 3 or 4 in that stretch. And I kind of thought, here they go. No, Arkansas didn't let that matter. They came back and they kept getting downhill. I think this Arkansas team really played this game smart. If you look at the down stretch of it, there was no freezing the ball out. I thought that was a mistake against Illinois, playing the clock and not the opponent. Arkansas doesn't have good enough players that can create shots at the ends of possessions, and you don't want them you don't want Arkansas's players taking threes at end of clock because they can't get downhill. You're better off attacking and getting what the strengths are, which is getting that paint and getting in the rim. Speaking of the paint, Arkansas -4 for the game, 34-30. But guess what? They were down. I think they were -8 at halftime. So they cut that. They actually won +4 in the second half. So everything was Arkansas in the second half. Better free throw shooting. And they didn't get clobbered in attempts. Both teams shot about the same. And Arkansas was better in the paint. Arkansas was better in the turnover game eventually. They ended up winning that. And then Arkansas, obviously, the big thing is rebounding all game long, offensive glass. You salute you've got to look at guys like Jordan Walsh. The guy had a nice runner that was just that he ended up being nullified because he grabbed the rim and it was a offensive goaltending, and he felt so bad because it doesn't matter now, but I'm just saying this guy's playing so well for Arkansas. And Arkansas had some rough stretches on possessions where it got late in the clock and they had a shot and they tried to make the extra move or turn on a pivot foot and the clock's running down, and now they made a makeable shot, unmakeable. They defended themselves. There were 2 or 3 possessions in that second half that were like that. Walsh and Ricky had a couple of those that come to mind immediately. Maybe Devo did too. But man, Devo is a poet warrior in the postseason. There's no player at Arkansas. Well, I'm not going to say no player, but in recent history, there's no one that has stood out to me because let's look at it like this. Guys have had great in-state tournaments. When you go back to 2 years ago when Arkansas goes to the Elite Eight, Justin Smith, Jalen Tate, Devo was outstanding as a freshman. Moses Moody had his moments. There were points in that tournament where he was good. Last year, guys like Note had big games. Jalen Williams, obviously. Moody, guys that stepped up. But Devo's still on campus. Here's a guy that's a third-year guy. So when you look at resumes, when you look at all of it, who do you want to go to war with? How many players in this NCAA tournament right now are being talked about as the player of the tournament? He's got to be one of them. It's still early. There's still games to be played even today, tonight, and tomorrow, just before you get into the second weekend. But so far, so good. And anytime you knock off a 1 seed and you're still dancing into the second weekend at that point, there's an extra speaking about buzz. There's an extra buzz surrounding your program and what's going on. Eric Musselman is now if you didn't think he was until now, before now, he's in the conversation with Eddie Sutton and that level of guy. If you look back at Eddie's career, he didn't have the success that Nolan did in terms of Final Fours and national championship and getting back to a title game. But he put a lot of players in the NBA, and he really helped a lot of guys. And he had a great, he had a Final Four and an Elite Eight, some Sweet 16s. Eric Musselman's on that similar plane right now for me. He's on a similar plane because you now got back-to-back-to-back Sweet 16s. There's 2 Elite Eights in there. You might get another one or better. And you're putting guys in the NBA on regular. Eddie did a better job than any coach Arkansas's had at not only getting guys in the NBA, but getting them ready. And I think Musselman there's some mirroring going on there. And both of them were known as in-game adjustment making guys, game preparation. Musselman might even have an edge there. So he was certainly, no doubt he was in the top 3 before this year. I think right now he's leveling up with Sutton. And there's a chance, depending upon how this plays out, that that he may take another move up, and now Nolan's the only one to walk down. And Nolan was an innovator. He's a Naismith Hall of Fame coach, and he won championships. In the junior college level, the NIT championship. When you look at his whole body of work, it's a long way to go for Musselman to get on that level. But having said that, I do think, again, I'm going to repeat it, Muss is in that Sutton conversation now, and there's not a lot of separation there, if any. Now, there may be some different ways to look at it, but this guy's only 4 years in, too. This guy has not been stuck around. He's 4 years in Nevada, 4 years here at Arkansas. He's just earned himself a raise, and he's going to get a lot of attention, I'm thinking, in this postseason. We'll see what's out there, but Arkansas is going to have to pay to play. That I think the ante just went up. And now, again, if I'm getting over my skis over one, it's not just one game. This is one of the biggest wins in program history. Arkansas with back-to-back seasons of knocking off a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. That's only happened 4 times. Arkansas is one of 4 teams to do it now. Arkansas picked up its 50th win all-time in the NCAA tournament. I think Arkansas had 13. Was it 13 Sweet 16s? You can call it 14 now. 11 Elite Eights. They can make it 12. This is not going to be an easy run for Arkansas. Arkansas, this will be the first time that Arkansas, through its first 3 NCAA tournament games, will not have played 2 double-digit seeds, because 2 double-digit seeds have had upsets, and Arkansas has had the fortune of playing Oral Roberts, even though that was a crazy game and tight, and you're lucky to win it, and then New Mexico State last year. So those teams that upset teams and were in Arkansas's path, and you could make the argument, well, that helped Arkansas. Well, those were 2 tough games. Tough games. Arkansas had to grind those out. This time of year, everybody, as you see the upsets. But this will be the first season that Arkansas doesn't get a double-digit seed at all through its first 3 games. You got a 9 seed, a 1 seed, and the 4 and 5 are playing tomorrow. Look at this. Advantage Eric Musselman and Arkansas. They get a full day. They get a full day to prep and plan, even though they don't know which one yet. Don't think Eric Musselman's not getting started on that tonight. Looking at both teams, figuring out commonalities, what's different. All that stuff Arkansas is going to start chopping up. They get the extra day of rest relative to whoever they're going to play. It's UConn, the 4 seed, and it's St. Mary's, the 5. And there's no team now. There's not a team in this field that Arkansas should be worried about. Not one, because they've taken Alabama to the wire twice. They went to the wire with Baylor. We know what this team can do. The one team they can worry about is Tennessee. I'll take that back. That was a bad matchup for Arkansas. But maybe there's things Arkansas can do in this tournament, even if it had to meet up somewhere down the line with Tennessee, to find a way to win that one. I thought this was actually, when I looked at the way Kansas played, not from a talent and size and athleticism standpoint, just the cerebral way that Kansas does things. And we saw some of it. They were clever at times. But Arkansas was just resilient, and they were just tougher. They grinded. You put Kamani Johnson on the floor. I mean, he doesn't play tremendous minutes, 19 or 20 today, but those 10 rebounds. Look, think about that's 20 rebounds if you stretch it out to per 40 minutes, and the 4 points. I mean, it's not about how many he scores, but he's always got a clutch bucket somewhere when you need it. This is the makings of a Final Four team. I never backed off of that when they got Nick back, and even though, and now you could say, well, even with him struggling in this tournament so far, and having AB what was AB running on today? What percentage do you think he was running on? 25%, 30? I mean, it was obvious. He just didn't play his game. He couldn't. This is incredible, man. I don't know how. I mean, I'm saying a lot here. Some of it may, I may wake up tomorrow and go, well, you may have bit off more than you could chew here, but I really don't think so. Well, whether Nick starts or comes off the bench, the point is, in a game like today, you had to put him on the shelf in that second half. It just wasn't working. It wasn't there. And so you needed to get the guys on the court that you could see helped you in this matchup. Nick is a fantastic player. I think, there's going to be some criticism for his play so far in the NCAA tournament, but I think the truth is, you're talking about a guy that's only been back for 11 games, and I can just see the fact that he's playing a different game right now, trying to figure things out where everybody else is in postseason form, and these teams are all good right now because they got here. And he's playing catch up on some stuff, regardless of his talent. And today, Arkansas needed to get downhill and beat on this team. That's the one thing I thought Arkansas would have an advantage of. You've just got to attack it. At some point, you don't need a lot of pull-up jumpers, 3-point shots. You need to get downhill. You need to make those refs. You need to put pressure on those refs to just pretend like they're blind and not be one-sided or call it right. And I thought eventually they ironed it out and got most of it right. I'm going to give them some credit. I do think there was some bailouts for Kansas, but overall I think it got right for the Hogs. But what a win. It's Hogvillenet YouTube Live. We did a pregame today. I went through some of this stuff, and I really felt like for Arkansas to come into this tournament and go 2-0, they were going to have their bad stretches in smaller doses. Well, they've done that. There's not been monster runs. In fact, Arkansas had that 11-0 run. What a run that was. I mean, they were down 12. They were 12 in this game to a 1 seed. And Arkansas made the comeback. And it wasn't like the other team just collapsed. Arkansas had to grind that out. I look at Ricky Council. Devo Davis, we know what he's capable of as far as being reliable, and he'll be physical at 6'4". He's going to be active. He's going to hit the glass. He's going to do things on both ends to give you a chance. We knew Ricky could score, but problems with him were, again, as bad as his last 4 games were through the SEC tournament. He needed to get out of the league to see different matchups and teams that weren't used to him. But to see him battle like he is on the glass and defensively, and then today he made good passes off those drives. When help would come, he'll sometimes force it. Not today. Dump down passes, bounce pass. And he timed them well. That's the kind of game Kansas plays. Arkansas hasn't had a lot of that outside of Anthony Black and sometimes Nick. We saw Ricky do that a few times this year earlier in the season, but he kind of got away from it. He was a bit of a facilitator today. He and Devo Davis looked like first-team All-Americans today, and the guy that's a first-team All-American didn't. He didn't. 20 points, and that's their best player. They had other guys. The biggest thing I thought Arkansas defensively stopping Grady Dick today. It was their second leading scorer, a guy that does a little bit of everything, held him to 7. Yeah, Harris turned his ankle, but he came back and he made some plays in that second half. In fact, he made the big plays and buckets that extended that lead out to 12 points. So no sympathy for that team. He didn't look as hampered with his injury as a couple of Arkansas's guys did. I keep talking about Council and Davis. Jordan Walsh, to me, this NCAA tournament has been his best stretch of basketball for 2 games, back-to-back games. He's really taken a step defensively. Yes, he's fouling. He's a foul magnet, but the way he's playing has been such a huge impact for Arkansas defensively. And then on offense, he's just been pretty good at getting some stuff around the basket, getting offensive rebounds, battling for those 50-50 balls. And then he stuck a three today, the only one he took. He turned some down, but the one he took, he knocked it down, and that gave Arkansas the lead for the first time since it was 2-0. That was with under 9 minutes left, 52-51. The Razorbacks are rolling again. And the way the team did it the last 2 years, I think fans, it was a shock to the system to see